If you've noticed numbness in your intimate areas, you're not alone. In fact, if you're over 60, there's a good chance that blood flow isn't reaching the places that matter most. For many men, it starts with something small, almost insignificant, a feeling of cold, a drop in energy, or perhaps a slight discomfort they'd rather not talk about. But what seems harmless can, over time, turn into something that quietly steals strength, self-confidence, and even the connection with the person they love. The most concerning part is that this isn't just about age, as we've often been told. The real problem lies in circulation. I'm Dr. Mason, and I've spent over 30 years helping men confront this challenge. I've treated veterans, retired teachers, mechanics, farmers, ordinary men with different backgrounds but the same worries. And I've seen many of them regain their vitality, energy, and intimate lives, not through invasive treatments or costly medications, but through a simple daily habit anyone can adopt at home. You might be wondering how a single glass of something natural each morning can make a man in his 60s or 70s feel alert, energized, and emotionally present like he hasn't in years. I had the same doubts until I saw the results myself. What I discovered was a morning ritual so simple, yet so powerful, that it can improve circulation in just a few days. And I'm not just talking about hands or feet, but the key areas tied to intimacy, energy, and emotional calm. In the next few minutes, I'll explain exactly how it works, what that glass contains, and why this small change could be the turning point your body has been waiting for. But before we continue, if this message speaks to you and you want to stay strong, sharp, and connected as you age, I invite you to subscribe and turn on notifications. That way, you won't miss any science-based health tips made especially for men over 60. And if you agree with what I've said so far, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0. Your feedback helps me improve this content for you. Now, before I show you what's in that glass and why it works so fast, we need to understand what really happens inside a man's body after he turns 60. Because most men don't lose strength, stamina, or desire solely because of age. What actually happens is much more subtle. Blood stops flowing to where it used to, and it all begins with an invisible change that catches almost everyone off guard. I clearly remember when a patient looked me in the eye and said, "Doctor, I feel like I'm fading away." He wasn't sick or terminally ill, but he felt like he was slowly disappearing, physically, mentally, and emotionally. His energy was at an all-time low. He constantly had cold hands and feet, and in private, he confessed to me, "It's like my body has forgotten how to respond." He was 62 years old. Since then, I've heard that same feeling expressed in many different ways. The problem is that almost no man realizes how much their circulation changes after 60. Everyone expects a few gray hairs or aching knees, but no one talks about how the arteries, those pathways through which life itself flows, gradually harden, narrow, and get blocked without warning. And it's not your fault. It's simply biology. Between the ages of 50 and 60, the body starts producing less nitric oxide, a natural substance that keeps the arteries relaxed and open. When those levels drop, the blood vessels become rigid, as if a flexible hose turned into a hard pipe. Internal pressure rises, but blood flow decreases. And guess where the blood stops reaching first? Your hands, feet, and brain. And yes, it also affects your most private areas. That's why so many men over 60 experience fatigue, mental fog, numbness, and a frustrating lack of desire or performance in intimacy, blaming it on aging. But what they're really suffering from is poor circulation. The blood no longer nourishes those areas like it used to. That spark that once felt automatic begins to fade, and slowly, a man feels like he is disconnecting from his body and even from the person lying next to him. I have seen men break down in tears in my office, not from physical pain, but from losing something much deeper. One of them told me, "It's like being alive but not really living." That phrase stuck with me because it's not about vanity, but about identity, dignity, and connection. Unfortunately, this gradual disconnection often goes unnoticed since we assume it's a natural part of aging, but it's not. Recognizing this is the first step towards reclaiming what you thought was lost. But here's the crucial point. It's not inevitable. When I began researching natural ways to boost blood flow, I discovered something that even surprised me. The human body has an incredible ability to recover, even after 60, 70, or beyond. All it needs is the right stimulus to awaken those dormant blood vessels, nourish them properly, and give your heart, brain, and most intimate areas the support they've quietly been asking for. That's when I started working with a simple, completely natural morning formula, a blend of nutrients designed to open blood vessels and refresh circulation without medications or invasive procedures. And what happened next exceeded all my expectations. Men who came to my office feeling drained began to notice their limbs warming up, their minds becoming clearer, and most importantly, that vital energy and intimacy they thought were lost forever returning. We're not talking months. Many felt the first changes in less than a week. Now you might be wondering what this morning drink contains. How can something so simple create such a profound change in energy, circulation, and even confidence? Let me explain it step by step, because it's very likely that the ingredients are already in your kitchen and could make you feel different before the week is over. If you're still watching and this message resonates with you, drop a "01" in the comments. That way, I'll know you're committed to yourself and ready to take control of your health. Now let's continue and dive into one of the most important parts of this story. Let's talk about the morning drink ritual. What exactly does it contain? When I started exploring natural ways to improve circulation in older men, I wasn't looking for a miracle cure. All I wanted was to help my patients feel a little better, to regain that energy, that spark that once drove them. But what I didn't expect was to discover something so simple, so accessible, and so effective that it would completely change the way I practice medicine. It all started during a trip. I decided to visit some regions in Europe known for their long-lived and healthy populations. In a small Mediterranean village, I met a 74-year-old man who proudly told me he still chops wood in the mornings, tends to his garden in the afternoons, and dances with his wife every night. No pills, no surgeries, just natural food, constant movement, and a drink he took religiously every day. He called it the glass of fire. Naturally, I asked him what it contained. When I got back home, I began experimenting with the ingredients he mentioned, adapting them based on modern science. After fine-tuning the mix with my own patients, I found a combination that truly worked. I called it the morning circulation glass. It's not a supplement, it's not something you buy in stores. It's a homemade blend of natural ingredients that you can prepare yourself in your kitchen. Here's what it includes. 8 ounces of pomegranate juice, a vibrant red drink packed with antioxidants that help relax blood vessels and maintain healthy circulation. A teaspoon of beet powder rich in nitrates, which the body converts into nitric oxide, the key substance for opening arteries. A tablespoon of lemon juice that cleanses and strengthens the inner lining of the arteries. A pinch of cayenne pepper, just enough to stimulate circulation and jumpstart the system. And if you like a touch of sweetness, you can add a small spoonful of raw honey to bring all the flavors together. Each of these ingredients is backed by science, but beyond the studies, they've been used by real people, men who came to my office feeling like shadows of their former selves, and who, in just a week, began to feel that inner fire reigniting again. The ritual is simple. Every morning, preferably on an empty stomach, you pour the juice mix in the beet, lemon, and cayenne and drink it slowly, without rushing. This isn't just about nutrients, it's about mindset, giving yourself permission to care for your body, choosing vitality over decline, starting your day with intention instead of indifference. Some men notice changes in just a few days: warmer hands and feet, greater agility, a sharper mind. Others first feel it in their mood, their posture, or in the way their partner looks at them after dinner. It's not magic, it's science, consistency, and above all, a daily choice to reignite what seemed to have faded. It all begins with circulation, and yes, it starts with that one glass in the morning. Now, you might be wondering if something so simple can really work, and why aren't more men doing this? Why aren't doctors talking about it everywhere? The truth is, part of the answer lies in what many men unknowingly do. They're sabotaging their own circulation, even when eating well or staying active. And that's exactly what we're going to uncover now, because understanding the most common mistakes can be the turning point that makes a difference. Over the years, I've had the privilege of guiding thousands of men on their journey to better health. But I'll never forget the first time I saw the full impact of this simple morning ritual. His name was Harold. He was 68 years old, a former construction worker with a tough demeanor shaped by life's challenges. But in his eyes, it was clear something had been missing for a long time. He sat across from me and said, "Doctor, I don't want to be 20 again. I just want to feel like myself again. I want to look at my wife and not feel like I'm letting her down." That statement struck me deeply, because what he was describing wasn't a physical problem. It was something deeper, emotional, relational. It was about connection, personal pride, that quiet strength so many men carry inside without saying a word. I gave him the recipe for the morning glass, explained how to prepare it, and asked him to try it for 1 week. 4 days later, he called me. His voice had an energy I hadn't heard before. He said, "Something changed. My hands are warm. I woke up before the alarm and felt ready for the day." On the 7th day, his wife came up to him and whispered, "You look lighter, happier." That was all he needed to know he was on the right track. And Harold wasn't the only one. Carl, a 72-year-old Marine veteran, told me he hadn't felt such mental clarity since he was 40, before he would forget why he entered a room. Now he feels more focused, more alert. Bernard, 65, wrote to me after just 5 days with the ritual. He said, "It's not just how I feel, it's what I see in her eyes when I walk into the room. That spark is back." And George, a quiet 70-year-old from Michigan, simply told me, "This made me come back to myself." To many, this might seem insignificant, but for the men experiencing it, it means everything. Because when circulation improves, it's not just about performance or the numbers on a medical chart. It's about reclaiming something deeply personal, the way you move through life, how you look at and talk to those you love, the image you see when you look in the mirror. One of them told me, "I didn't realize how much I had lost until I started getting it back." That's what this ritual does. It's not about making you younger. It's about restoring your dignity, vitality, and confidence. I'm not sharing these stories to build false hopes, but to remind you that real change is possible. You're not stuck, you're not too old, and above all, you're not alone. Still, some men don't experience the full benefits. And when I looked closer at what was happening, I found they all had one thing in common. They were making the same silent mistakes, everyday habits that block circulation, no matter how well they eat or how much they walk. And most importantly, once you know what these mistakes are, you can fix them right away. That's exactly what we're going to explore now. The 3 most common mistakes that silently damage male circulation without you realizing it. And if you're making any of them, that might explain why you haven't seen results yet. If you've made it this far and this is helping you, drop a 1 in the comments so I know you're here and paying attention. Now let's move on to the next point. The 3 mistakes that sabotage circulation in men. Over the years, I've seen something that breaks my heart as a doctor. Men come into my office full of hope. They start the morning glass ritual, improve their diet, walk more. They're doing everything right. But for some, the results take time to show up. That used to frustrate me. I would wonder, what are we missing? Then I started paying closer attention and noticed a clear pattern. These men were unknowingly falling into small habits that canceled out all the good they were trying to build. These weren't big, obvious mistakes. In fact, most men making them thought they were making smart choices. But as I listened to their daily routines and asked the right questions, the same three issues kept coming up again and again. You see, the first was hydration. It might seem basic, but it's one of the most overlooked pillars of healthy circulation. Blood is mostly made up of water. Without enough fluid in the body, it thickens and moves more slowly. I can't tell you how many times I've had to remind strong, intelligent men that coffee or tea doesn't count as water. If your blood is dehydrated, it doesn't flow. And if the blood isn't flowing, neither is your energy, concentration, or vitality. The second mistake is something modern life has practically forced on us: sitting too much. I had a patient, Bill, a retired accountant, who told me he spent hours reading the newspaper, watching TV, or doing crossword puzzles. There's nothing wrong with that, but when you sit for long stretches without moving, blood can pool and slow down. Blood vessels stop getting the gentle pressure they need to stay elastic and strong. I told Bill, set an alarm every hour. Just stand up, stretch, take a few steps. That small habit made a big difference for him. The third mistake, and perhaps the most harmful, is stress. I'm not talking about the kind of stress that gets shouted about, but the kind that silently weighs on you, the one that burdens your shoulders and lingers day after day. Financial worries, fear for health, loneliness, all of these raise cortisol, a hormone that narrows blood vessels and impairs circulation, no matter how healthy your diet is. I always say your heart can't open if your mind is closed by fear. That's why I recommend taking deep breaths, writing down your feelings, praying, or simply going for a walk for a little while. Anything that brings you peace is also medicine. Once we address these three areas, water, movement, and stress, the results started showing up faster. Men who had felt stuck began to feel better within days. Their hands warmed up, their legs felt lighter, and their minds became clearer. They started moving through life with more ease, more joy, more presence. And here comes the most beautiful part. When those changes begin to happen, something else comes back too. The belief that they were not broken, the belief that life still had so much to offer them, and the belief that aging doesn't mean decline. And that brings me to the most important truth I've learned after decades in this profession. A truth that has nothing to do with ingredients or routines, but everything to do with what is still possible for you if you're willing to believe it. Let me share it with you now. After more than 30 years of walking alongside men like you, I can say with complete confidence that aging is not the enemy. What truly does harm is losing faith in your own body, because I've witnessed what happens when a man decides to reclaim his health, his confidence, and the inner fire that still burns within him. I've seen it too many times to call it luck. We started this conversation talking about circulation, but we ended up discussing something much deeper. We spoke about connection to your body, your partner, your energy, and your identity. Because that morning drink is not just a beverage, it's a signal. A signal to your body that says, I'm not giving up on you. A signal to your partner that says, I still want to be present. And a signal to yourself that says, I'm still here and I'm alive. We talked about why circulation declines after 60 and how it's not just about aging, but about a chemical change that can be naturally supported. We discovered a simple ritual with ingredients you probably already have at home. We heard the voices of real men, men who felt warmth return to their limbs, strength in their steps, and closeness in their relationships. And we talked about the silent mistakes that block progress: dehydration, a sedentary lifestyle, and unexpressed stress. But most importantly, I hope you take away from all this the certainty that it's not too late. not by a long shot. You don't have to accept decline as your fate. You don't need to give up the life you've built or the love you still have to give, because the truth is, healing has no deadline. Growth doesn't stop at 60, and passion doesn't fade away. It just needs the right fuel. So tomorrow, when you wake up, I want you to remember this conversation. Pour that glass, drink it with intention, stand up with determination, and give your body the chance to feel strong again. Not just for yourself, but for those who still need you, admire you, and love you. You still have a lot of life to live, and what flows through your veins can fill you with power, purpose, and presence once more.